Hello, everyone, and welcome to Developing Palates. I'm Aaron Loomis, and with me, as always, is June Liu. How you doing, June?
I'm doing well.
Just getting off doing an episode of Sharing Our Pairings with Rob over at Cigar Federation. Drank a bit of whiskey, so feeling good and feeling warm. Today we are talking about the Manolo Estate Cuban Crown Toro. This is a 6-inch by 54 ring gauge offering. Comes out of the Tabacalera El Artista factory in the Dominican Republic. Wrapper is listed as Mexican San Andres, and the binder and filler are both undisclosed. Blended by Luis Gutierrez. Price point on this cigar is $9, and it was released at the IPCPR this year, so July of 2016. So with all the cigar details out of the way, let's get into our pre-light experience. So June, what was your pre-light like?
So first with the wrapper look, mine had a little bit of a rustic Colorado Maduro shade wrapper to it. The box press I realized was really aggressive. It was more like a rectangular ring gauge for mine, so it fits easily between the two fingers. Veins pretty well pressed. Seams. I had a couple of the seams that was just protruding out, so it wasn't as tight as what I typically see in cigars. Cigars bunch and roll. I thought that cigar felt really firm, but it had like a uniform firmness to it, and I didn't, feel any soft spots. And I didn't feel any particular hardness around the head as well. So hopefully, that got me thinking it shouldn't be an issue on the draw. Hopefully, the head was finished off with a really thick triple cap, which is always nice, so that I could kind of recut if needed. Uh, In terms of the pre-light aromas, on the wrapper, I got aged cedar and barnyard. Foot, I got some sharp cedar and like a really abundance of dry white pepper. Cold draw, dry cardboard, some lip tingling dry white pepper. Overall, it was an average pre-light experience, but hey, you never know what the actual cigar experience is going to give you on the smoking.
Right. Yeah, the wrapper was a milk chocolate brown. There were a couple of decent sized veins that were well pressed. The seams were easily visible due to the wrapper's thickness, but it was rolled tight for me. I didn't have any kind of the raised seams like you did. Caps were applied very nicely. Like you said, it has a very aggressive rectangle press to it. Two bands on the cigar. Primary band has the line and the blender's name on it, and the foot band says Private Reserve Box Pressed. And the bands are primarily burgundy, gold, and black. And the aroma that I got from the wrapper was like a light barnyard and a well-aged leather. Foot aroma was light haze sweetness, and then the pre-light draw was had that same light haze sweetness and a little bit of cinnamon to it. But there was also like a bit of a spicy tingle on my lips from the wrapper, so that was a kind of a nice addition there. So getting into flavor, first third to final third, what was your experience like?
So on the first third, the main notes that I got was dark and bitter cocoa, and I got a faint amount of like a nice palate layering wood bitterness. So kind of in addition and it accompanying these notes, I got some roasted dry nuts, very balanced amount of tongue layering black pepper, and got some baking spices out of it. Through the nose, the black pepper was amped up, but in a good way because I was kind of looking for that on the mouth draws. But on the retro, it hit it just on the spot for me. And in addition to that sharper black pepper, I got some sharp oak. The finish, black pepper on the rear palate, some fig wood bitterness, and some dry roasted nuttiness. Body and strength medium within the entire first third. Moving on to the second third, couple of notable transitions. I got some increased wood bitterness, and then some breast started coming into the profile as well. The remaining, flavor still was there. Notes of that dark and bitter cocoa, roasted dry nuts, that same balanced tongue layering black pepper, and baking spices. Through the retro, still the same intensified and welcoming black pepper, sharp oak, and bread. The finish, still the same, still providing slight black pepper on the rear palate, flank wood bitterness, and some dry roasted nuttiness. In terms of body and strength, still solid medium. Moving on to the last third, the only difference for me in the last third is namely the wood note. That wood bitterness that I once got within the first and second third, it kind of transitioned to more of like a charred wood. But aside from that, everything else is still the same. You know, that dark bitter cocoa, bread, roasted dry nuts, balanced black pepper, baking spice, through the nose, still that same level of black pepper, sharp oak, bread. In the finish, still lingering with that little bit of slight pepper on the rear palate, um, some slight wood bitterness, and some dry roasted nuttiness. In terms of body and strength, still medium. So overall, mainly prominent notes of wood and that bitter dark cocoa, and then it's kind of with different like dry roasted nuts and a bread coming in and out of the profile.
Yeah, initial draws for me brought like a dry cocoa and a cinnamon, kind of similar to like some Mexican chocolates that I've had before. A quarter inch in, the cocoa went away, and cedar came in to go along with that mild cinnamon. The retrohale was slight cocoa and a fairly zingy cinnamon. And then a half inch in, the cedar became a bit drying and a little bit of cinnamon on the finish. An inch in, dry cedar still the predominant flavor. The cinnamon continued to kind of hang on the finish. The retrohale was still carrying a bit of cocoa, and that cinnamon zing had dialed back a bit. Um, the As the third was coming to a close, I got a little bit of gritty earthiness and some bitterness that kind of joined in with the cedar and the cinnamon finish, and the strength was just below medium. And then the second third, the bitterness and the cinnamon went away, and the profile was cedar and that gritty earthiness. And then at a half inch in, the earthiness lost the grittiness, and but it moved up to the front, and the cedar kind of moved to the background. The retrohale was just a smooth cedar. And then an inch and a quarter in, the earthiness remained up front and with the cedar in the background, and a little bit of earthiness kind of moved into the retrohale as well to complement the cedar. And then as the third was coming to a close, a little bit of pepper joined in with that earthiness in the cedar, and the strength had moved up to slightly above medium. And then getting into the final third, the cedar left the profile, and the earthiness and the pepper remained. And then a half inch in, a bit of cream, and what I only really describe as like an effervescence kind of joined the profile to go along with the earthiness, kind of gave it a very interesting profile. After a few draws, that effervescence went away, and it was replaced by a little bit of mintiness. And then an inch in, the profile was just the earthiness and the mintiness. The retrohale was a toasty oak, and an inch and a quarter in, some creaminess joined in with the earthiness and the mintiness. And then an inch and a half in, the mintiness went away, and the earthiness and the cream remained. And that's kind of how the cigar finished out. And the strength in the final third was also slightly above medium. So a little bit below medium first third, then just a little bit above medium for the second and the final third. So getting into performance for burn and draw, what was your experience like?
The burn was really good. I had clocked in a total of 2 hours and 7 minutes to smoke the cigar. Um, and the burn line stayed fairly sharp throughout the entire smoking experience. Ashes held on strong, um, inch and a half increments. The draw, I thought it was amazing. Just the right amount of resistance for me to taste everything that the cigar had to offer me. But yeah, I mean, overall, within the singular example that I smoked for this review, really well constructed cigar. So
Yeah, for me, there was a little bit of waviness, but the burn always kind of kept up with itself. There was a decent bulge at the foot of the cigar. I'm not sure if you experienced that, kind of with that aggressive rectangle press. You could really see that it was kind of bulging
oh,
at the burn line. Um, but it never caused like the wrapper to split or anything like that. It was just something I noticed. It's not anything that detracts from the score or anything like that. And I was getting inch and a half increments on the ash as well. Um, for the draw, it was just slightly looser than I prefer, but other people might find that like the perfect draw that they like. I just like a little bit of resistance, but I was able to get large volumes of smoke on each draw, so it was very good. So overall, what were your thoughts on the cigar?
um, overall, I mean, I thought it was a good cigar. I rated. the flavor profile within first, second, and last third, good, all across the board. And of course, just talking about the really well constructed example that I had. Um, but you know, for me, I feel like with Mexican San Andreas cigars, granted, whatever they use for binder and fillers, that could change it a lot, no doubt. But within the Mexican San Andreas disclosed cigars that I've had, you know, I feel like a lot of them fall within this realm, which is it's a good cigar. It's an ordinary cigar. It's a run of the mill kind of a cigar.
Hmm.
Rarely do I find a Mexican San Andreas cigar to be bad, and rarely do I find it to be truly remarkable. So,
Hmm.
so overall, good cigar. I think that I especially some of the flavors that I really liked. I really enjoy that dark and bitter cocoa note quite a bit. Um,
Hmm.
I sometimes I taste cigars that have various chocolate type notes, but for this one, I felt like it was a very distinctive dark and bitter cocoa. And it kind of reminded me, and I wrote this on my review on the written one, of like a really good Guatemalan coffee. Like when I nose Guatemalan coffee, it just smells just like dark cocoa.
Hmm.
And when I was tasting that note, it automatically reminded me of getting the Guatemalan coffee from the Excellent Cup from Peter that I
Hmm.
went through like freaking 3 pounds already. So, that in other words, that note is very ingrained in my head, right?
Right.
Um, I do think that it's worth smoking. If I were to be handed one, I wouldn't turn it down.
Hmm.
But that's kind of where it stops.
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, there wasn't much in the way of transitions for this cigar, but the flavor profile that the cigar was offering was good. So it stayed interesting. Sometimes you don't need a lot of transitions if the flavor profile is presenting good flavors for you. The cedar, the cinnamon, the earthiness, those are all the primary flavors. And I enjoyed the company flavors as well. So like in that first third, I got that kind of mix of the cocoa and the cinnamon, giving me that Mexican chocolate, which is something I really enjoy. So that's always a good way to start the cigar. I think the cigar is approachable to most smokers because the profile didn't get too dark, and the strength level kind of stayed, or hovering around that medium range, a little bit below, a little bit above. So it wasn't anything that kind of went off the charts or anything like that. I definitely think it's worthwhile to seek out and see if it's something that fits people's profiles. And I definitely smoke the cigar again. It's not something that turned me off or anything like that. So it's definitely got a flavor profile that I enjoyed, and something that I would go back to. So that's always a good sign. So getting into scores, you gave it a 7.20. I gave it a 6.67. How do you think your score matched up with your profile, your experience?
I think it makes sense. I mean, if I were to purely look at it from a flavor standpoint, just that 7 range seems a little high, but it does make sense because it was the example that I smoked was such a well constructed cigar,
Hmm.
so that definitely helped out the score. But yeah, it was it was good. It was ordinary, but it was good. So
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's matched up for me as well. I mean, it's an above average cigar. Um, performance obviously helps it out. Having a good burn and having a good draw is always a plus. So that kind of helped up the score a little bit. So it's definitely something that's good. And the price point at $9 is not something that's going to break the bank. So it's definitely worthwhile for a try, and see how it fits your profile, to see if it's something that you like, and if you do like it, something you can buy more of, and put them away, and see if kind of see how they age, and smoke a few here and there, and just kind of see what time does to them. So I think it's definitely something that's worthwhile to seek out. Any final thoughts from you?
No, that's it.
Okay. Well, thanks for watching. If you're just catching this video on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to us, but also go to the website, developingpalates.com, to read the full written review. And be sure to follow us on all the social media channels: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Google+. And thank you for watching, and we will catch you on the next video.